Hello everyone, welcome back to the Marketing Cloud Administrator Bootcamp, Day 7. Thank you for joining us today and we are so excited to have you. I am Jyotsna Bitra and I lead the Salesforce Marketers Group in Phoenix. I have Naji and Natasha with me today. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The session is being recorded and you will be receiving an email with the recording and the copy of the presentation 24 hours after the session. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to post them in the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel. We will get to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. If you have any unanswered questions, please reach out to us on the Slack channel. And you can find all the resources that we are sharing and all the recordings in our Slack groups, the resources and the homework channels. And if you have missed any of our earlier sessions, you can find them as well in the resources channel. We would love to hear your feedback and comments. Please post them on Twitter using the hashtag MCAdmin02Hero and tag @PHXB2CUG. So couple of things. So what are we grateful for today? I am grateful for the resources that are created by the Salesforce Marketers Developers Group. So this has a ton of resources which were added since the past few years. So here's the place where you can check all the resources that were added to this one. And if you can go down and look at here, these were added since 2017. So they have almost all the topics covered. And there are some GitHub resources as well here and the video resources as well. There's a ton of resources actually. And all these have been very helpful to me personally as well. If I were working on something, I would go back here and refer to some of the videos and the articles here. And there is another YouTube channel for the same, SFMCDG. It has all the videos from the group and also all the user group meetings that were conducted. As I said, there's a ton of resources in here. Be sure to check this out. And also another announcement, we're going to have a certification challenge. We are so excited for that. So you will all be eligible to participate in that. As we say, this bootcamp is intended for anyone who wants to learn the ins and outs of the Marketing Cloud and also for someone who wants to take the certification or retake the certification. We have put our best efforts to bring you the best. We are here to not just help you with the exam content, but also provide you assistance by the study sessions and the practice tests as well. We will be with you all throughout your journey for the certification. If you really follow all our sessions and complete all the tasks discussed after each session, I think you will be almost ready for the certification. So with an intent to give you a little more push and motivation towards the certification, we have come up with this certification challenge. I know we all love challenges. So more details about the challenge will be announced in the upcoming session, but be sure to attend all the sessions and follow all the recordings and complete all the tasks that we discuss every day. And here's the list of sessions that we have completed so far. And current session is going to be about email studio configuration, which comes under channel management. And the next Thursday, it's going to be about Journey Builder and MC Connect. And it's just a glimpse of what we have covered so far in our previous sessions. We have talked about some of the Marketing Cloud products, subscriber data management, and the setup features. You can also find all the recordings linked in here. In today's session, we're going to discuss a part of the channel management. The channel management takes up to 16% of the overall exam, and we can expect 10 questions on this one. So it includes the email studio configuration, journey builder configuration, which we are going to discuss today and in the next session. We have already looked at the mobile studio configurations, advertising studio and social studio configurations in our first session on day 2. And today, Natasha is going to cover all about the email studio configurations. There's a lot to discuss. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Natasha. Thanks for joining us today, Natasha.
Thank you so much. Can you just confirm that you can hear me okay?
Yes, you're good. And you have,
Perfect.
yeah, you can share your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I wish I could see you all. And if my settings were working, I'd also show you, put my camera on, but that's not happening, but it doesn't matter. I'm super excited to be here today. It's been a very long day. I'm based out of Toronto. It's 9 p.m. with me, but I'm so passionate about everything that JB and team are doing that I would give up anything to be here. So without much ado, a quick slide about who I am. I'm a marketing cloud architect and consultant. I was voted a marketing champion this year, as were a lot of the presenters. I think all the presenters, if I'm not mistaken, that are presenting to you in this bootcamp. I am, as of I think last week, the new Toronto Marketing Cloud Group leader. I still need to get onboarded, but I'm still announcing it because I'm excited that that happened. I'm a friend of mine and I have a training company called MA Incognita, where we train other companies, mostly based out of Toronto and North America, on Marketing Cloud. And I'm Marketing Cloud certified, also a certified Scrum Master, product owner. So a lot of the work I do is in the strategic, the architecture view, you know, how to set up Marketing Cloud, how to implement it, and even migrate other tools onto Marketing Cloud. Please feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm not as cool as the rest of the people here. My Twitter is pretty dead. So use LinkedIn to reach out to me. I'm pretty active on that channel. So today, this is part one of channel management, and I'm deliberately not putting my screen in presenter view. My computer dies then. But do let me know if you can't see anything, and I'm happy to risk it anyway. So today is part one of channel management, where I will be covering, Email Studio, its baseline configuration. Some of that includes ReplyMail Management, RMM for short, sender profiles, some other setup activities, and I will briefly also touch on content and data extensions. The part two of this goes into more detail around the rest of the topics that are covered in this section. And that's where I believe Debelina will talk about Journey Builder, Social Studio, Mobile Studio, if I'm not mistaken. But primarily, my goal today is to review this. So you're comfortable and you know that if you're asked questions in Email Studio configuration, you knock them out the park. Essentially, this is what we will be looking at today. So first, I will go through just quickly what Email Studio is, how Email Studio and even Content Builder work together in a lot of use cases when it comes to Marketing Cloud and building and sending emails, and then the baseline configuration where you would actually go and set that up, and why you would set it up and how you would set it up. So I'll be jumping back and forth between the deck and the tool itself. Like I'll be logging into my account just to show you exactly what it looks like. Before I get started in Marketing Cloud, I do want to quickly cover, and I'm sure like I'd be shocked if there's people who still haven't seen what an email looks like. My grandmother has seen what emails look like. In fact, she plays poker on Facebook half the day, so she's not a good example. But this is a screenshot I took of an email in my Gmail. And there's a couple of things here. G2 is the name, the from name this email has come from. Thanks for joining us is the subject line. And everything else here in gray, we are so glad to have you, that's the pre-header. So this is baseline stuff that you would see all the time in your mailbox, whether it's Gmail, Hotmail, or Outlook. Here is what the entire email looks like. Like if I were to click that, and I don't want to do that right now because that means getting into my Gmail, but if I were to click this, I would see the actual email, which again, we've got the subject line up here. We've got G2, which is the from name or the sender name. So G2 is sending me this email. outreach@hello.g2.com is the from email address. So this is another setting that's coming through. The email body, which is all this central piece where all the fun content stuff is generated. And finally, the footer. The footer has the logo, the address, the physical mailing address that G2 uses, and an unsubscribe link. So I just want to get this clear because this is going to be a baseline to the story that I need to tell on how and why we need to configure an email. So how does all of this come together in Marketing Cloud? Now there's several different ways this does come together, but the simplest way and the most common way it would be, you create an email in Content Builder, you create a data extension in Email Studio, and you could, yes, create a list, but for my example, we're creating a data extension, and a data extension is a table in Marketing Cloud that can be used for sending purposes, or you could use it just to hold data, to be part of a relational database. In this case, we have the email, or G2 would have taken that email, built it, created a data extension, added records to that data extension. So just for example, in my example, I've only got an email address, and then hit send, and that would have been delivered. So this is the whole process. But where does this happen in Marketing Cloud? So I'm hoping you're all following with me, because when I was first introduced to Marketing Cloud and there were all these high-level concepts being thrown at me, it took me a while to understand, because Marketing Cloud is a beautiful product. It's also very advanced and it can be very complex. So you need to know where everything happens. There's a lot of different places where different things happen. So the from name and the email address, which is the G2 and the outreach@hello, that would have been set up, that would have been created in the setup section of Marketing Cloud. And that is the purpose of today's session. And that is very important, because this is configuration you cannot get away without. You have to create it. You have to set it up before you can start sending emails. And in this example, this is just the from name and the from email address. There's additional setup items you need to configure in Email Studio setup before you can start using Email Studio for sending. This part, the email body, which would include the subject line, the pre-header, the body, the image, the links, everything that you're creating, the visual and the textual elements of the email, would be created in Content Builder. So that's yet another part of Email Studio. And then the actual sending, in this example, would have been done by Email Studio. Now, yes, this could have been done in Journey Builder or Automation Studio. Right now, we're only focusing on Email Studio. So before I jump into setup, quickly, let's talk about what Content Builder is. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced or have used Content Builder. You know what it is. Just bear with me for a few minutes while I just make sure that I've done my due diligence in telling my entire story. So Content Builder is our Marketing Cloud's content management tool. This is where you bring in all of your assets, and those could include images, documents, text files, code, everything and anything you want to start using in your emails. But Content Builder is not just for emails. It is cross-platform. It's cross-functional. You can also create SMS and push notifications here, and also landing pages. So all of the elements you're bringing in Content Builder can be used to build not only emails and templates, but also all of these other items that I've listed right here. There's other stuff you can do in Content Builder. You can create reusable components, which are called content blocks. And the whole concept of content blocks is it's pretty unique, as in it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You create several content blocks, bring them all together in a template, and that becomes your email. And content blocks can be reused several times, as many times as you want. So that brings together that whole concept of efficiency in Marketing Cloud. You can also create emails using lots of different ways. You can either create emails using templates, or if you like coding in HTML, code in another tool, Dreamweaver, for example, and bring it back here in Marketing Cloud. Let me show you how to access content builder. I'm just going to log in to my account. This is my company account, so okay, I have to do this the long way. Actually, bear with me a second. Just going to click on the verification link, so we are all set here. All right. So I'm hoping by now you've all had a chance to not only see this gorgeous dashboard that I spend most of my time in, but you've also had time to build things here. So Content Builder can be accessed in this app switcher, which is this list of icons or apps as they're known in Marketing Cloud. And if I click on Content Builder and I'm in the interface, now on the left, right now there's nothing here because this is our test account or our parent account, so we don't have anything here. But I would have folders, and those folders would hold content. And any folder I want to share with other business units would be in my shared folder. But on the right here, this big blue button is what I would click if I wanted to create an email message or a template or a content block. And as you can see, there's tons of content blocks. Each one can be used for its own use case. And if I start talking about each one, we'd be here for the next few days, I think. So I'll leave it at that. You can create an SMS message here, or a mobile app, a line message, which is also for push notifications, and you can upload content here. So there's like a lot happening here. How this is used is, as I mentioned, you bring content here. Best practice is only to bring content that you will actually use, that you will activate in the platform. There's really no point in bringing any more content that just adds more overhead, and then using it. And that's the quick 5-second view of what Content Builder is. I wish I could ask you questions as I went along, but I can't. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat like JB mentioned. Let's go back now. Now let's assume I'm going to change my business unit and go to test. Let's assume we've got a test email that we've built in Content Builder. How would we actually send it out? Content Builder is only for building content or bringing content in. It's the repository and where you would start massaging all of your images and text to make stuff. To send out any content, I would have to go to Email Studio. Email Studio is right here on the left, the first icon on App Switcher. So I would click on it, and feel free to follow along if that helps. And now I'm in Email Studio. So don't be deceived if you're new to Marketing Cloud by how simple everything looks. It's all very intricate, and every tab up here, depending on if your company has access and if you've paid for that, some of them are additional paid purchases, leads to a whole new universe. So right now we're in the Email Studio context. And here on the left, under Overview, is a list of the most recent emails that I have created. You can see I've got other people on this list as well. I can even click on each one and see what they've been up to. And here on the right is a quick summary of all of the recent tracking results of the most recent emails. So the first well, I guess dashboard here, the overview, this is literally just an overview. Content up here takes me back to Content Builder. Now, this is where I would go from the email studio, how I just came here from email studio, to pick up an email. And for example, I would say, I'm going to go to Natasha Bootcamp, and this email has already been previously built by me in Content Builder. And then I would click on this drop down and I would perform any one of these functions on it. But for sending, as I mentioned, I would have to do it this way. So that is how I would go back to Content Builder from the email studio. Subscribers is where a lot of very interesting stuff happens. Number one, this is where we would hold all our subscriber data for Email Studio. So this is different than Contact Builder. There's, I don't want to get into the differences between what a contact is versus what a subscriber is, because the purpose of today is just email and Email Studio. But this is where all of this data is related to all the subscribers, everyone who's consented to receiving emails from us, and they all live in this world. This is the all subscriber list, which is the master list that holds everyone's statuses. And this is very important because when we send an email from Marketing Cloud, the system first does a check, takes that subscriber key, looks at this list, sees if that subscriber key is active. If yes, it sends out that email. If it's inactive or unsubscribe, it will not send out that email. And the all subscriber list is fundamental. It's significant in that way. The subscribers is also where you would create those data extensions that we spoke about earlier. And those are tables. And I'll just quickly show you a very, very simple data extension, which just has one field. This is what it will look like. So here, high level, you would see that my data extension has one record, and I'll just show you what that looks like. It has one field, and the field's name is email address. Its data type is email address. Now when you're creating a data extension, you can choose up to 8 different data types. Email addresses have to be of the data type email address. Its length, this is by default, 254, and I could have chosen any one of these values. I didn't, I left it at that. I'll show you, here is that one record. So a data extension, again, is just a table that holds records. There's 2 steps to this whole process. You first create the data extension. Like to create a data extension, that's also a very simple process. You just hit create. I'm just going to say I want to create a standard data extension, give it a name, test ng2, because I'm sure I have a test ng. I'll select it's sendable, because then I can start sending to this data extension, using it as a send audience for my email sends. Click on next. I'll ignore the retention settings for now. And next, this is where I would actually start building out that table. Like every table would have, every field would have a name. I would give it a name, like for example, I'd say first name. It's data type text. As I mentioned, there's 8 different data types for my intended purposes. I'll say text. Its length is 50. I could go up if I wanted to go to 30. Is it a primary key, which is like, is it a unique value in this table? Yes. Does it have a default value? Sure. Valued customer. And so on and so forth. So I would really build this table out. And once I build the table out, I could bring in data to this table. I'm not going to create this now. And then also in the subscribers tab, you could also perform other functions, like you could filter off of a data extension, or you could create publication lists. And the concept of publication lists is that once you associate a publication list with a sendable data extension, then subscribers can unsubscribe from that publication list. They don't necessarily have to unsubscribe from the all subscriber list. So that manages, I guess, subscriber status on that publication list level. And then there's a lot more happening here as well. But the short story is that this is where where you would perform all of the data management activities related to your email sends. Interactions is where you would perform a little more automated tasks. typically the kind of work I do mostly would be creating user-initiated emails, which are emails that you set up it almost looks like a form, and you can either send them manually, you can schedule them, or you can send them as part of an automation. I also create a lot of triggered emails, which are emails triggered off of an activity somebody performs on a website. Like, for example, if somebody signs up for your newsletter on a website, an email could be triggered that you've built in the system. Tracking is another part of the tool or the email platform, the email studio, apologies, which you would be spending a lot of time with if you're not already. And this essentially allows you to track per email send performance. So how did an email perform? How many open rates did it have? How many click-through rates? How many unique open rates, unsubscribe rates? So I performed this test a couple of days ago, and you can see that it tracks pretty much everything you need to know about how the email performed. Best practice here is if you are involved in a role that involves tracking and analytics and reporting, don't just look at the good stats, which is open rates and click-through rates and open to click-through rates. Look at the bad stats as well. Look at the delivery rate. If it ever falls below 80, something is wrong. You may need to investigate why that's happening. And that's not, you never want it to fall lower than, even 99 is great. Anything lower than that is bad. That means emails that you're painstakingly building are not reaching inboxes. The other bad stat that you should always look at is unsubscribes. So if you're getting a consistently high unsubscribe rate for your emails, maybe do a query and see who's unsubscribed and get them off, future email sends. Or see, like there's so much you can do just looking at the data here. Admin it will take us to the admin tab that I want to show you in a couple of seconds, but for now, I'm going to leave this as blank. So that was my quick fire introduction to Email Studio. Now, going back to my deck, you will get this deck, and there's a lot of screenshots here, and those are essentially everything I've just shown you. And you will get this at the end. And if you do if you get lost, this will provide you a very nice guide. Let's go back here. Now comes to the whole purpose of today, which is Email Studio settings. As I just mentioned, I probably mentioned it about 4 times, you cannot send an email out without setting up some of those baseline settings. Your system is not ready unless you do that. And how do you do that? You will go hover up here where your name would appear, and you would go to setup. Give the system a couple of seconds. There you go. Now this beautiful dashboard appears. This gives you a quick high-level summary of the test metrics for some of your journeys, how many automations ran. It also tells you how many data extensions you had. So this was all pretty new. Like back when I started using Marketing Cloud, which was in 2015, this did not exist. So it was pretty hard to know how many data extensions we had in the system, especially when they were in folders and subfolders and subfolders. So this is a very nice way of getting that consolidated information. It tells you how many users your account had and how many pieces of content you created. We're just going to leave this for now. And where we want to go, Email Studio settings, is on the left-hand side, this nav bar here, under Platform Tools, Feature Settings. And these are settings you have to set up for specific studios. Email Studio. And there's a bunch of settings here, some of which are required, which is these top 5, and others are optional for your email sends, but they're still good for you to know and good for you to set up. So let's get started with what From Address Management is. So From Address Management, as I showed you in that example, would that example of that email from G2, which came to my inbox. Here's where you would set up, like say if I was the admin on G2 side, I would set up an email address, which I would use for my sends. So that G2 email address, let's go back to what that was. which is right here, outreach@hello.g2.com. This is where I would add it. So before I can start using that email address in my sense, step one, go to From Address Management, add the email address. Now there's a couple of things happening here. I could either add the email address right here as an individual email address. So, info, I'm just going to make something up right now. I don't want to use G2 at sendingemails.com. I'm not going to save it, but I could. And I could also add multiple email addresses, either from an existing data extension. In that case, I would have earlier created a data extension, maybe just had one column with with the field name called from email addresses, and a bunch of email addresses I wanted to bring in the system. So those email addresses would have been g2@outreach.com, g2@outreach.com UK, and so on and so forth. Or I could manually enter up to 20 email addresses. So I could say, let's do Natasha, I'll do my gmail.com, enter, let's do another one. So up to 20 I could add here. And as soon as I add them and I do done, they would be imported in the system. So just to recap, when you want to send an email out from the system, it will need a from email address, and that needs to be added here. They're not successful because I previously tested with them and I deleted them so many times, so I'm not surprised. But they would have appeared here. Next, you would have to verify that email address. So where it says status verified, all the email addresses and the domains, like up here, we've got Appnovation, have to be verified. Individual email addresses can be verified very simply by, you click on this on the left here, this checkbox, you go to Actions, and there would be a new drop down that would say send verification email. And let me just come up with another test email address. Let's do this. So we've got info@sendingemails.com. This status is pending. If I wanted to change the status to verified, send verification email. Now, since this is just a fake email address I just made up on the fly, we're not going to get this verification email, so I'll leave this as is. So that's step one, add email addresses here. Step two, verify email addresses. There's another thing you can do here as well. You can also register domains. So here, as you've seen, we've registered an entire domain, which is appnovation.com. Now, when you register a domain, all future email addresses that use that domain. So for example, if somebody on my team, Susan at appnovation.com, if I had to add her status would be automatically verified. So that's typically the approach larger companies take with lots of from email addresses, where they just go ahead and they verify or they register the domain. Domain registration can happen either if you've purchased this product from Marketing Cloud called SAP, which is called Sender Authentication Package. So if you purchase SAP, that your domain can come pre-verified as a part of that purchase. Or you can work with your IT team and they can help you register that domain as well. So there's three things happening here. You can verify individual email addresses by sending a verification email. You can you can register a domain, and domain registration happens either through SAP or you work with your company's tech team and they can help do that for you. Next, sender profiles. Now, sender profile goes beyond just the from addresses. This is where you would create the from name and the from email address that your email is going out from. So here we've verified your email address. Here now we have to set it up. Let's have a look at, or let's actually create a new one, so you can see exactly all the steps that are involved here. First things first, you need a name for your from email address, your from name. So I would just say, and this is the brand name you want. So for me, it could be, say, marketing. External key, you can leave blank. If you want to add an external key, you can use that if you want to access this programmatically through an API call. Description is up to you if you want to leave blank or if you want to use it. Now, this is the from name, you need to now add a from address. You can either choose the address from a list. Now, this is a list that is already exists in the system. This email address exists in the system, or you can create a new from email and from name. So here we've got marketing, and the from email could have been marketing@emails.com. So if I were to create this, and if I were to hit verify here, and this is created, if I were to use this sender profile for my email sends, on the receiving end, an inbox would receive an email from marketing, and the from email would be marketing@emails.com. You can have multiple sender profiles set up in your account. Usually the brands I've worked with, they would have one for marketing, one called newsletters, one called promotions, one called sales. They'd have different buckets of sender profiles that they would send for different email sends. So that's completely up to you. There's a couple of other things that are happening here. Once you set up a sender profile, you can choose whether you want to override the company ReplyMail Management settings, which are right here. And I'll go over that in a couple of minutes. And ReplyMail Management just manages the replies you may receive to this email address. So if I get an email from marketing@emails.com and I click reply, these settings or this setting here manages that. So I can say, okay, let's override the company settings. Let's use this new custom settings. And for my reply name, I would say no replies. Address would be no email@marketing.com. This could be anything. This is completely up to you. Best practices, try to keep it something that the people you're sending your subscribers can resonate with and they can recognize. Or I could even say, let's use direct forwards, which means that all the replies that I'm getting, or these emails are getting, go to marketing@emails.com. Or we could do other, these are essentially used for triggered sends. So I won't click on that right now. And you can even use auto replies, which are, you can just, a system generated message that tells you, thank you for emailing. So this is all about sender profiles. And it's super simple, as you saw, to create. I'll show you a previously created one for a company where we've got a description, and for testing purposes, I created my email address. This, in a real situation, this would be pretty bad practice. It would be appnovation@appnovation.com, but since I needed the emails delivered to my mailbox, I used that. And that's all. That's literally all it is about sender profiles. Required, you always need to have a sender profile with your email sends, and it's up to you what that sender profile is, provided that you're following the best practices and the sender profile is recognizable by your subscribers. Next, delivery profile. So delivery profile defines the who of your email. Sender profile defines the what of your email. Here, there's a couple of things or a couple of settings you need to set. First, your delivery profile defines what IP address our email is going out from. You can either choose account default, or you could choose private. And private would be a setting if I had SAP purchased. SAP comes with private IP address as well. Or you could purchase additional private IP addresses. There's companies I've worked with in the past which had private IP addresses for their marketing emails and private for their transactional emails. And that kept the deliverability completely separate. So in a delivery profile, the first thing you do is you select which, whether your IP address is private or account default. Next, you define the header. Now, the header is the top part of the email, which is typically view as web page link. Here in our example, we've got account default. You could also choose none, so you don't want that to show up, or you can choose library content, where I could have picked up an item that I've pre-created and I've shared in Content Builder. I'll show you what account default is in just a second, and where you can access, or if you want to change that, how you can change that. Footer is also similar. You can have none, you can choose account default, or you can choose a library content footer. Now, the footer is a part of the email that is required for your email send, specifically the preference sender link or the unsubscribe link and a physical mailing address. And usually your footer would have that information. The account default footer has also, I believe, the Salesforce logo. So if you want to override that, you would have to go down here to company settings, account settings, and you can change that here where it says headers and footers. So you can click on edit, and this is, again, this is the company default or the default footer that we were looking at, and you can change it right here. Awesome. So we've got a delivery profile already created in our system, so we're just going to leave it as is. And this delivery profile tells us that we've pretty much set up default as everything, which is great. Next, send classification. So there's a couple of things in send classifications. Emails can either, emails you're sending out from Marketing Cloud can either be transactional or commercial. The major difference between them is transactional email that you're sending out, they only need a physical email address. They're not required to have the unsubscribe link. If you want to add an unsubscribe link, that's just best practice, sure, but they're not required to have them. And commercial email addresses need the physical address, like, you know, if it was G2, G2's actual mailing address, which would be, I don't know, G2 plaza at newyork.com, sorry, New York, but it is required. So send classification is where you would define that. And then you would also define the sender profile. If you want to attach a sender profile with this send classification, is completely up to you. For us, we're just doing default because we're going to choose a sender profile separately. Delivery profile as well, we're going to choose default. And this setting is important as well. So in send classification, you can also define if you want an email to be sent out at a normal priority or a low priority. So low priority means it just held for longer while other processes run and continue if there are the competing processes. There's another high priority that you can purchase for an additional cost. And when you do, it'll show up here, but then you do pay more because that then emails are sent out immediately from the system. So that's all about send classifications. And time permitting, I will show you where all these settings, once we build an email and we're sending out email, how you specify them in that process. ReplyMail Management, and this is, there's a lot of questions that are asked about ReplyMail Management in all the other certifications, so I wouldn't be surprised if this comes through. Like I mentioned, this defines the replies you're getting to your system. There's only one the ReplyMail Management that you set up for your entire account. It's not like sender profiles that you can have multiple. But here, if, as I mentioned, if somebody were to reply back to that G2 email address, you know, it would be something like G2, reply subdomain would be the part of the email address after the @ sign, so G2.email.com, maybe reply email address would be the entire email address, so G2.email.com. DNS record redirect complete. This is a setting you would have to do, also work with your account executive, your Salesforce account executive, who would help you do this this setting. And this is beyond Marketing Cloud. Then here's also where you set up, or you tell the system how the system should handle if somebody responds to that email address and you get an out of office or an auto reply from that mailbox. So say I, Natasha Gilani at gmail.com, got an email address, but I'm on vacation and I have an out of office message sent. Now here, if Marketing Cloud gets that out of office, it can automatically delete that. It can not reroute it here. That's what we're defining here. This is also a very, very interesting feature we have in the system. Here, you can unsubscribe manual requests, or if somebody says, please unsubscribe me, the system can manage that automatically. You don't have to click on any link, or subscriber doesn't have to click on any link. So subscribers who are responding to emails can also opt to choose any one of these keywords or their misspellings to unsubscribe as well. So if I were to unsubscribe from a G2 email, I just click on respond and say unsubscribe. And the system, since this is set up, would automatically unsubscribe me. And then I could even have like default response emails. So for example, if I do a default response, if somebody responds to my email, a default email like this will be generated to them. It's pretty much like an acknowledgement email. Or I could set up a new email. It's a very simple email that you could set up to manage that. And I can also add a new email address here where I'd say, okay, the responses to my email should not be sent to this email address, but it should be routed here. And that's all there is about ReplyMail Management. There's a couple of optional features that you may or may not set up in your account, depending on whether or not you've used them. What you will use, or what I've seen companies use, is the HTML paste feature. If you enable this, you can create HTML paste email messages and templates in Content Builder. What I've also seen used at times is the from name dropdown of users. Here, if Natasha Gilani is a user in a Marketing Cloud user in the platform, I could use my name as a sender profile name and as that from name. I could also have send throttling. So here I could define if I want my sends to be staggered across a period of time, so the system has less volume to deal with. Impression tracking is another interesting feature you may want to have enabled. This is to do with if you have AMP script in your email or dynamic content, where each of those AMP script or dynamic content areas have a unique identifier, and then the system can help you track their performance in the tracking functionality. And you can even have the text-only email set up. So these are all optional features, as it tells. And as I mentioned, and I'll stress on it before, these are all the features you have to set up. Test send thresholds. Now, when you're sending a test email from Marketing Cloud, you can only send a maximum of 1,000 emails. So you can either send a maximum of 1,000 test emails to test email addresses, like 1,000 test email addresses, or 1,000 different versions of the same email. Like, for example, you have different content areas or content blocks. So you cannot, no test can proceed or exceed this amount. If you exceed at the 25 number of a test or a seed list number, you will get a warning that tells you that, okay, you're getting in that dangerous zone, so you may want to be careful. You can't override this test. This is important because it prevents you from accidentally sending a test email to a larger audience. So when next time you do a test send, see if you can find a list, or if you find a test data extension that has more than 25 to 26 seed lists, and see how this warning comes up. So this is also something you may want to change here. You can add, make it higher if you have a larger team that wants to test, or just keep it at 25. Subject pre-header validation. Also, there are some keywords here that essentially the system looks at, and if your emails have them, it will send you an alert and say, okay, we've detected a word that should not be there in your subject and pre-header. So you may want to change that. You can even add additional words. And this is also another way you can prevent, words like test going out as a live send. And I've seen that happen to a couple of people, and it's pretty traumatic. So this is a nice way to manage that. Finally, URL expiration. So all URLs used in Marketing Cloud, they have a lifespan of maximum of 2 years. And that includes all the, the system-generated URLs, the links to your preference center, the Marketing Cloud's preference center, Marketing Cloud's profile center, or the unsubscribe pages, or even the email, the content, image links. So all the links you may use in your emails, they have a lifespan of 2 years. And you can hear the minimum amount of time you need to have a link alive for, the system will have it alive and functional for, is 60 days. You can increase this to up to 2 years, which is, I believe, 730 days. There you go. So I could say, I want all my links in my emails to be functional for 100 days. And this is important. Like 60 is great because say somebody gets an email, but 2 weeks later they go back to that email and they want to click on a link because they saw a promotion in that email and that link is still working for them. So this helps you manage that kind of a scenario. There's also these two settings down here where if a URL does expire, if you select the system default URL, if somebody clicks on that URL, they're defaulted to a very simple landing page that is pretty basic. You may want to redirect them to another landing page if that URL is expired. So say you have a promotion and there's shoes being sold and that URL is expired, but you can send them back to your main store right here. So that's all from me. JB, do we have time for a quick email test, or do you want to open it up for questions?
We'll see if we have any questions, and then if we have any time left out, we'll go over the email flow. But thank you very much, Natasha. That is very well articulated and detailed demo. Really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Awesome.
We'll now get on to the questions.
Hey, Natasha, great job. I love how well you explained everything, especially how you went over and just really kind of did a generalized overview for those who may have never really understood the makings and the setup of emails and how they go from start to finish. So wonderful job. I believe that we only had a very few amount of questions, and 2 people have asked you to go over something, but let's go through our questions first and just see what time we have left. So one question was in regards to subscribers. It says all subscribers, it says all subscribers are if they've been sent an email, correct? Okay, so all subscribers is if they've been sent an email, correct? Which means a subscriber could exist on a data extension, but if they've not been sent an email, they won't show up on all subscribers. Is that correct? Is that how that works?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Cool. Awesome. And then the next one is on delivery profile. So can companies choose their own SMTP for sending emails, or should it be from Marketing Cloud itself?
I'm not very familiar with what SMTP is. Is that the IP address? Does that manage that?
I believe I can see. We can tailor this one. We can table this one for next until I get a little bit more clarification. But
sure.
we can push that one to the next one. The next question is, which would you recommend more? Headers and footers built in the setup, or headers and footers in the email templates to be built there? What's the best practice there?
Best practice that I've seen happening is headers and footers that are built in, well, footers specifically built as a content block, because then the company can really control the look and feel and the layout and the color scheme and their own email, their own links, as opposed to the system generated ones, because that has an additional, like I mentioned, I think the Salesforce logo that comes through as well. So that is best practice.
Wonderful. Awesome. I love that. So I have a set of questions. Do all settings that you have covered today have to be done in individual business units, or can they be done on a global scale?
They have to be done. And JB, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've always done them individually in individual business units, because the sender profile in one business unit would be different from a sender profile in a different business unit. And the example that I'd love to give, that I give there is, say Gap and Banana Republic are 2 different business units. So they're essentially 2 different accounts. So it would be done on that level.
All right. So I have one more question, and then I have 2 requests. So this is for thresholds. Is the maximum threshold of 1,000 for test sends per each email test send, or is it per day, or is it per business account?
It's per email test sent.
Perfect. Cool. So we had 2 people ask if you could go over, let me say, hold on. If you could just kind of go over something for us. So let me check real quick. Okay, it says I got confused with sender profiles. So would you mind kind of going over that a little bit more again? And then someone
Sure.
else, I don't know if you have the time, but if you feel like it. And then lastly, someone wanted to know if you would not mind going over the bottom settings on RMM.
The bottom settings of
The custom settings in the bottom of RMM, ReplyMail Management. So those were the 2 requests of you. If you have the time, feel free to go over it. If not, we totally understand.
I think this, so if we want to cover them, I would love to cover them, but I think I want to spend like at least 10-15 minutes on them. So
Yeah.
would it be okay for these 2 individuals to reach out to me directly and I could just set up a Zoom call with them, or in one of our next sessions we can make that longer and take it from there?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. That's not even a problem at all. That sounds great. Thank you. So for those 2, please feel free to reach out to her directly in our Slack channel. All of our wonderful contributors are all in our Slack channel, so please don't hesitate to reach out to her. Her name is Natasha, and she can help you out with that, walking you through a step-by-step on that. So don't hesitate to reach out. And as we already know, I wanted to just remind you guys of the wonderful challenge that we're going to be doing. Don't forget, everyone, that we have a challenge for you, and we will be going over the rules of this challenge in the future, coming up in our next few webinars. But there's a pretty cool prize at the end, and we're really hoping you guys will get excited because we want you to get your admin certification. So please get excited, get ready to take on this challenge. We want to see each and every one of you guys try to reach the goal that we have set for you. And we're really excited about that. So more details to come. So look forward to hearing more about that challenge from us. In regards to homework, as everyone already knows, we did have a few new people come to the class today. So welcome everyone who is new. Please reach out to, please look in the resources channel of our Slack channel, and you will find you will find the slide deck. You will also find recordings of previous sessions. If you happen to have missed something, don't worry about it. Just look in the resources channel, you'll see it. If you are looking for suggested tasks for studying, as well as just homework tasks, I post them at the end of every night of these classes. I post them at the end of the day, and I would love for you to go to the homework channel of the Slack, of our Slack workspace. So again, if you need homework and suggested tasks for going over what we just learned from Natasha, then please go to the homework Slack channel, the homework channel. And if you need this slide deck, as well as the recordings for previous presentations, go to the resources section. Oh, and great news. This Saturday, we are hosting a study session. You will be having a study session with me, and we will literally just go over the Trailhead modules. If you don't feel like coming, because it literally is just reading Trailhead modules, which anyone can do, but we just want to give you that community-like support, don't worry, you don't have to come, but everyone, you're more than invited to come. This Saturday, we will be having our first Salesforce Marketing Cloud MC Zero to Hero admin study session this Saturday. So can't wait. It will be at 9 p.m. on Saturday. So I think that's all for the announcements. JB, I'll turn it over to you.
That's great, Naji. There's a lot coming up. Be sure to attend all our sessions. And thanks for joining us today. And we'll see you in our next session. Until then, have a great time.
Great job, Natasha. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.